Hi guys, Jen here. Welcome to Morning Coffee with me. Today we're going to be discussing the third week of our series, What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do. For those of you who know me, know that I love my coffee. But I want to talk about a time when, and some of you can probably relate to this if you've ever experienced a pay it forward moment, if you will. I was going through a line picking up coffee one day and recognized the lady at the window. And she was kind enough to say, "Oh, put your money away. Today's on me." We had mutual friends or something, and it was just a kind thing for her to do. Well, if you've ever experienced one of those moments, you may have had mixed feelings about, "Oh, I really do need to pay them back somehow." Sometimes it's just really hard to receive a gift like that. Paying someone back for a coffee or a lunch that they picked up isn't sadly the only time that payback comes to mind. Payback also comes to mind when we've been hurt by someone. Those times when someone's talked about you behind your back, you'd like payback for that. Or if someone flirts with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you probably would want payback for that. Or when someone doesn't text us back or leaves us on red, which isn't the color, by the way, or doesn't invite us for a group outing. We want payback for those situations too. But it's when those moments when we get hurt, when our feelings get hurt, that we want payback. Now, maybe we don't do the all scary movie kind of payback or revenge songs like several pop artists do when they get their feelings hurt. But we do all try and get payback in one way or another because we want them to feel the pain and the hurt that we have felt. We want them to be embarrassed like we were embarrassed. Or at least to get something in return, even if it's knowing that shady social media comment we put out there was really about them, the person that hurt us. The people who are closest to you and the people who know you the best have the most potential to hurt you. So they're the most likely to be on your list for people that you owe payback. There are 3 ways that payback can come. Payback can come publicly. When we talk about the person who first talked bad about us, and we joke and say, "Oh, just kidding, JK, LOL." We really meant that, and we really meant for it to hurt them like they had hurt us. Or a subtle passive way of payback. We put that subtle media post on Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram. We roll our eyes when somebody talks to us, or we just ignore their texts. But then there is what I like to call imaginary payback, which I tend to be an expert at. That's when you think of the perfect comeback line or payback method in your head. You have these arguments that just destroy them, but they're all in your thoughts because you never actually do anything. Those are the imaginary types of payback. And then there's perhaps the most satisfying payback of all, watching them fail. If you're a country music fan, there are many songs that come to mind when I think of hoping someone fails. If your ex broke up with you and then their next relationship, they're the ones that got broken up with or cheated on or hurt. If your mom snapped at you and hurt your feelings, and then later you see her crying and apologizing and feeling horrible for what she's done, in those moments it feels like you've gotten justice, doesn't it? Feels good to see someone get what you think they're deserving of. Well, that's exactly like the situation that Joseph has found himself in as we wrap up our story. In this series, we've been journeying through the life of Joseph, whose story is found in the book of Genesis. And his story is a crazy one, where oftentimes he had no idea what to do next. I often feel that way. So early in the series, we talk about how Joseph knew that he was his dad's favorite, he had the coat of many colors, and he tended to rub it in his brothers' faces. He also had dreams where he was in charge of the whole family and then told his brothers about it, proudly, I'm sure. So, since Joseph was super annoying, they plotted to kill him. His brothers did. A little bit of an overreaction. But instead, they saw people traveling through town and decided they would just make a little money and sell him off as a slave. So, throughout his life, Joseph was a slave in Egypt, a slave in prison in Egypt, and Joseph was the man who interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt. Joseph was eventually placed in charge of all of Egypt, second in command only to the Pharaoh. Pretty good outcome for a kid who was sold as a slave by his brothers, huh? Well, then there's a plot twist. So Joseph was second in command to this Pharaoh, and there was a food shortage in the area where his family lived. So Joseph's dad, Jacob, sent his brothers to Egypt to ask for food because their country was out, they were starving, and it didn't look like things were going to change anytime soon. So at this point, keep in mind, Joseph's family still believed that he was dead. So, of course, his brothers weren't even thinking about possibly running into him when they went into Egypt. So they arrived in Egypt, saw Joseph, not knowing who he really was, and drama. You can read about this in Genesis 42 through 50. You don't want to miss it. It's a fun story. So I want to read you a verse from chapter 45. It's verses 1 through 3. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence." So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers, and he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. Now let's imagine this situation and the emotion. Joseph is face to face with people who have tried to kill him, have sold him off, in turn leading to his imprisonment. The same brothers who ironically were there now asking for his help. This was a get what's coming to you kind of moment. Payback was Joseph's for the taking, right? Everything was set up perfectly. All he had to do was let it happen. Well, he could have refused them food, could have had them thrown into prison or even killed, possibly. Now, I want you to think, if you were in Joseph's shoes, what would you do? How would you react? You don't have to share that with anybody. Just think in your own mind, what would you do? Well, as his story continues, he asked his brothers to walk over to him and stand closely. I can only imagine how terrified these guys were about what was about to happen. And Joseph said to them, this is from chapter 45, verses 4 through 7, "I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now there have been famine in the land, and for the next 5 there will be no plowing or reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance." Joseph is taking the high road, y'all. He's realized that God has set him up for this time to be able to help his brothers. And there's only one reason that Joseph could respond the way he did. He didn't try to get payback because he had already let go of that idea of revenge. He had already done the hard work, forgiveness. He had forgiven everything that they had done to him. And how do we know that? Because he could look them in the eyes of the ones who've caused him the most pain and the most grief and care about how they were feeling at that moment. When Joseph said, "Do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here." He was acknowledging their wrong and his hurt without creating more hurt. Only someone who is healed by forgiveness can do this. Forgiveness is not easy and does not often come very quickly, but it's the only thing that can truly give you that healing. Somewhere between being sold into slavery and being reunited with his brothers, Joseph did that hard work of giving his hurt to God and allowing God to be central in his healing. It didn't make what his brothers did okay. It didn't excuse their actions. It didn't make Joseph's pain any less. It just took that pain, the real hurt, and no longer put that center stage. God was standing there instead. And that made forgiveness possible. Forgiveness was not only for his brothers, it was also freedom from his own pain. That may be the only thing better than payback, is reconciliation. This is how we see God do the impossible in relationships, bringing peace where there has only been hurt. When it comes to other people hurting us, we have that opportunity to also choose something better than payback. So, when you don't know what to do, pursue peace instead of payback. When you pursue peace, you're fighting for that relationship. Joseph preserved his relationship with his brothers because he chose peace. And he was only able to do that because he fought for that forgiveness. He was only able to forgive with the help of God. Joseph didn't have a superpower that allowed him to do this. He just had determination and did the work required and an understanding of God at work in the situations, which means that you and I can do this also. When you pursue peace, you're laying down your right to get payback. You choose God's story of reconciliation instead of your own story of payback and revenge. Much easier said than done. Something you may have to work at daily, but the ultimate benefit is for you. You not only have that peace with them, the people who have offended you, but you have peace in you as well. Now here's the hard part, the complicated part. What happened to Joseph isn't what's happened to you, and vice versa. We could talk dozens of stories, and none of them would be exactly yours. So maybe you've spent this whole time wondering, do you always have to reconcile? Or what about when it's a toxic situation? Or what if you're the one who did the hurting? Each of us has unique and complicated situations, and figuring out what that looks like to pursue peace is not easy. That's where your small groups come in handy. That's where they are important. We want you to feel safe, to talk about what this looks like for you in your life, in your friends, in your family, and in your situation. So I want you to think about what you have the power to do when it comes to pursuing peace. What do you need to decide? Who do you need to forgive? And what offense do you need to bring to God? He can do incredible things in your story that you may not be able to even imagine. So when you don't know what to do, pursue peace instead of payback. I hope to see you all Sunday evening. It gives you a chance to come to your small groups. If for some reason you're not able, if your schedule is busy, if the weather ends up being bad, whatever the situation, you can always reach out to your small group leader or to the other members of your group, because they will be able to give you that advice and support for your particular situation. Have a great day, guys. Bye.